Hi there, my name is Dave. Welcome back to True North Michigan Tesla. However, if it's your first time finding us, we're a travel channel that looks at traveling around the most beautiful state in the country, Michigan, and about doing it in an electric vehicle or an EV. And we're going to talk a little bit about the tools and some of the things that I use to plan my trips so that we don't have what a lot of people who are new to electric vehicles or don't have them yet call range anxiety. And that's the worry that you're going to run out of electricity in the middle of nowhere. And so we'll talk about some of that and what tools we use and how we get around that. So welcome back, and let's take a look at the tools. Hi, there are a lot of apps that you can use to plan your trip with an electric vehicle. I have a Tesla, so some of mine are Tesla specific, but the majority of them are not. And what we'll do is I'll show you how I use them. Some reside on my phone, and I can use them on my phone. I have one that I like to use on my laptop, a little easier. And how I get the information back and forth to the car or carry it with me on my phone. So first thing, let's take a look at how we do a trip. Some of the things you have to plan on first are, what do you need to know? Number one, you need to know your vehicle. You need to know how long you can go without a charge. Some of the things that do affect it are altitude. So if you have to climb, or you get a bonus if you come down and you're regenerating using your brakes, and you need to take that into consideration. But also you have to take into consideration sometimes temperature. In Michigan, when it gets cold, it does affect the battery, and it could affect it actually up to about 10%. So those are some of the considerations that you have to make sure that you look at up front. So I specifically know that if I want to do a trip, which during this pandemic, the state of Michigan has finally allowed us to travel up to our second home, they call it, my camper up north. So I'm going to take a trip up there, and it takes me usually, depending on how I go, between 5 and 6 hours to get up there, because I include all my stops and I kind of plan my stops. I've learned how to optimize those, because if you use some of the techniques like in the Tesla car itself, and you just say, I want to go from point A to point B, it'll take your battery, run it down as far as it can, charge, run it back up. There are optimum points in the battery that go faster when you're charging than others. So there are some little tricks that I've learned along the way on how to make that work. So we're going to talk about some of that. We're going to talk about how to program in a really good trip. And let's start by looking at some of the apps that I use on my phone. Well, some of the apps that I use on my phone are, as you see there, Charge Hub, Dashboard for Tesla, which is actually a very nice tool. Superchargers, which show me where the superchargers are. Electric Trip, which helps you do some trip planning. ChargePoint, if you want to pay to use some of the ChargePoint chargers, you can do that. And the Tesla app. And I also use this PlugShare. And let me show you how PlugShare looks. For instance, say I was going from here, St. Joe, to Kalamazoo, Michigan. Kalamazoo, Michigan is a dead zone. I did notice that on the Tesla website that they're going to build a supercharger at a Meijer. It's a grocery store, kind of like a Walmart, a local Walmart there. But as it sits right now, there aren't any. So say I needed to charge in Kalamazoo. This is what it looks like when you go to PlugShare, and with PlugShare it just shows you a lot of the locations, and then you can click on them and it tells you what it is, and then it's a wall charger, and if it rates it to tell you if people like it or not. I've used a few of them in Kalamazoo before. One of the ones I've used is Airway Fund Center, and they have a J1772, which means that it's the 4-prong plug. It charges okay, not fast, but if you need to get a little bit of a charge, it's convenient. And what's nice is that's free. It's in the back of the building. There's a pole sticking out of the ground with a couple of plugs in it, and I've found that there's a lot of those. There are some like this at Sam's Club that have some of the paid ones. And also, you have to be careful because some of them have these CHAdeMO adapters, which not all vehicles, Tesla, doesn't use the CHAdeMO. So you have to make sure that it works and is compatible with Tesla. So you can find a lot of those things here. They also will show you, for instance, like in my area, there's a supercharger. And so that supercharger pops up in here too. And the supercharger definitely is much faster. Here's one of the tools I use on my laptop. This is called a Better Routeplanner. A Better Routeplanner is kind of a handy thing. It helps with any kind of EV to get from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E and back again. One of the things you'll find with Tesla is that it's great from point A to point B, but you can't put waypoints in. You can't do some odds and ends things with it. So this actually takes advantage of the fact that Tesla doesn't and helps you through it. It also uses some pretty good calculations on how and when to charge. Like I alluded to before, there are points where you can charge and it goes faster than others. And those points are usually somewhere around 10% or so to about 50-60%, and then it starts dropping off quite a bit. So if you can keep the car within that range, you actually will charge less time, but possibly more often. So instead of taking a 40-minute stop, you do 2 15s. So with that in mind, you save 10 minutes on a trip, which isn't bad. So how I use this is, number one, it's kind of handy because you can set it up, put whatever kind of car you have in. So there's mine predefined. You can tell it what your departure percentage is, 90%. It'll figure out approximately how much it'll consume per watt hour per mile, and it'll put that in there. You can change that and kind of update that. There's also things about how do you want to charge. Do you want to get to a charger with how much left? Do you want to charge all the way up to 100%? In most cases, charging to 100% does kind of affect your battery. So a lot of us try to keep about 90% or below. And also how low, because you don't really want to get below about 10% actually. How fast you drive, and do you drive the posted speed limit? I've got it set at 100%. What's the maximum that you're going to drive? Yeah, 93. Road conditions, wind. Is there a headwind? Temperature. Those kind of things you can set in here, and it will take those into consideration, which is extremely handy. So anyway, let's try to do some planning. So say I don't have anything in here right now. I'm going to put St. Joseph, Michigan to Kalamazoo, and I want to come back. So I'll add another point. St. Joe, Kalamazoo, and back. And if you hit this blue button, it'll calculate it. And what it does is it'll show you the route on the map. It'll show you a little chart of how long it's going to take, if you have to charge and all that kind of stuff. All the information is going to be here, and how much of your battery you used during that trip. So if I start out with 90%, I'll be at 58%, just generically going into Kalamazoo. Leave Kalamazoo at 58%, and I'll be back here with 28%. You can do things in each location, like say you want to customize it. I don't want to use 90%. I want to use truly at 85%. I'm going to leave tomorrow instead of today, and not at this time, at a different time. You can set all that up. So you can tell it exactly when and where, and it's going to tell you how long it's going to take you to get there. Let's plan a real trip. And just for fun, we're going to leave Kalamazoo in there as our first stop. We don't really have to go there, but it's kind of nice to add something to the trip. And maybe we can add Battle Creek too. And you could drag it around, put this up in here. So from Battle Creek, I want to go back to where my camper is, in Indian River. And then, let's say I picked somebody up in Kalamazoo. We stopped at Battle Creek to eat. Let's go back to Kalamazoo to drop somebody off on the way back. Let's calculate. If you look at the display, it shows you a couple of things. On the map, it'll show you where you're going to go. Here in text, it's going to show you what times, how long you're going to have to charge, where you're going to go. And let's take a look at it. So let's say we leave St. Joe at 90%, get to Kalamazoo at 58%, drive to Battle Creek at 43%, and then we start heading north. And from there, it says, well, let's charge in Lansing. And it says we'll be at 9% when we get to Lansing, charge to 60%. It's going to cost you about $6. It's pretty close. And we're going to charge for 22 minutes. And then we'll drive to Clare. We'll be at 10% from 60%. And it's going to cost us $7. We're going to get to 68% to get to Gaylord, Michigan. In Gaylord will be about 10%. So if you see a theme here, it tries to stay in that range where it goes the fastest to charge. And we're going to be at 56% when we leave Gaylord. Cost us $5. So the entire trip, which is quite a few miles, is going to cost you a total of $18. And we get to my campground with 35%. And depending on when we leave, and we can set, so if we left now, we would get there at around midnight, about 12, 11, and that includes all the stops and everything to make it. And it shows you here, total trip is 13 hours, 22 minutes, or 23 minutes, and about 661 miles, and it takes about 11 hours of actual driving. So you're looking at about an hour and 20 minutes of charge there and back. So it gives you all those details. One of the other things it does is, and I kind of like to do, is you can export it to Excel. I will export this to Excel and print it and have it with me and give it to the Copilot and tell them, here's what we're going to do. And each step of the way, we put it in the GPS that's in the vehicle. So I will put in the address for Kalamazoo first, Battle Creek, then the supercharger in Lansing, and I'll do them step by step through this, which is kind of handy. So that's how I do it. And I like to do it that way because it gives you the most optimum routes. It helps you to keep the charging down to a minimum and get you from point A to point B the fastest. And that's always helpful. And it uses superchargers all along the way. So if you noticed here on the map, those are all superchargers all along the way. And on the map it tells you that yes, you're going to stop here for 16 minutes. You're going to stop here for 28, 26. And that's where you're going to end up, way up in northern Michigan, just below the bridge. That's how I do my trip planning. And then I put it in the vehicle. I hope this helped a little. Pre-planning, getting everything ready. Next video, we're going to take a trip. Click down below the like button if you like the video. Click the subscribe button so that you get all of our videos. And click on the bell button and you'll be notified when the new ones come out. Please comment and let me know what you'd like to hear. Do you use a different tool? Put the tool in the comments. Do you want to see a different place in Michigan? And I'll intentionally make a trip and we'll talk a little bit of each one of the places, history. I was just looking at some of the cool houses in Charlevoix and some of the neat things that are up there. If you haven't ever seen a mushroom house in Charlevoix, you need to do that. Or found a Charlevoix stone on the beach. And I'm not going to tell you what those are until that video. So let me know in the comments what you think. And please hit that like button and subscribe. Have a great one.